Hey everybody, this is Sid with 360 Home Inspections. Today I am joined once again by Kristin Murphy of Mission Realty with EXP. And we are fortunate enough to be hanging out in a model home for
River City Custom Homes.
Yeah, so we appreciate just being able to hang out here, film some content. But one of the things we want to talk about today, as the market continues to shift, and we know that everybody's tired of talking about the actual shifting of the market, we want to go back to some of the things that have been forgotten about in the last couple of years, and that's preparing a house for sale. I know on our end, over the last couple of years, the amount of defects that we have been finding have really gone up, right? The average amount, because sellers have just not really cared to properly prepare their house, and because their house was still going to sell, and it was still going to sell for over asking most likely. But here we are, and I know I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, houses that we have done inspections for, when I go to look them up, because I always see where I'm going and whatnot, so I can click on the Realtor, the Zillow, whatever, and it will say, $20,000 price drop, $30,000 price drop, $40,000 price drop, before pending. So that's going down, which means that buyers are starting to get a little bit more in the driver's seat, or at least share the steering wheel a little bit. Maybe not in the driver's seat, but still be able to at least share the steering wheel. So we just want to kind of talk to you about the importance of preparing a home. Because now it's an important factor.
Yes, and the market is shifting, and it feels weird to those that have been in the business only 2 to 3 years, but really we're getting back to the basics of how things should be and more normal. So I think it's important to address these factors.
Yeah, and I know you, along with a couple other realtors, are big proponents of pre-listing inspections.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, pre-listing is just for when we come in, do just a home inspection, complete home inspections like we would do for a buyer, to help prepare the home for sale. Because what happens is, this is a very emotional time. A lot of emotions on both sides. House gets put on the market, goes into contract, home inspector comes in, wrecks everything. And now you have, 7 days, 10 days, 14 days to get to process all that, right? Whatever that time limit is. The average lately has been 7 to 10 day turnarounds. So we come in on day 2, 3, 4, 5, cut your time in half, you get the report. All this stuff's wrong with the house, whatever the case may be. And now you're trying to negotiate on a timeline, a very tight timeline, on whether or not this is going to be the house for you or whether or not we move on. And if you move on, well, everybody has lost time, and the buyer especially has lost money that you can't get back, because we're non-refundable, right? Because you didn't like the house doesn't mean
yes,
get
you
the money
still
back.
performed the job.
That's right. So pre-listings can help you get ahead of that, right? Kind of help you prepare the house, let you know what's wrong with it, kind of let you decide what you're going to fix, what you're not going to fix, and how you're going to fix it. Right, because the negotiations and the way the contract's written is, it's supposed to be
by a licensed and insured Class A contractor or the specialist in that area.
Right. So again, just emotions are high and whatnot, short time frames. Buyers are always concerned of, how are they going to fix this, who are they going to call, all this other stuff. But a pre-listing will help prepare you for that. Right. So you just want to talk about what you normally do when you do a seller's consultation, and what you kind of go over and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've touched on a good many things, and it's important for so many reasons. So when we first go into a listing presentation, we sit down with the client and we're telling them all the things that we're going to do to provide value to sell their house, and how to get that house ready so that we can sell it in the quickest amount of time possible for the most amount of money. One of those things is the pre-listing inspection. It's important for multiple reasons. You touched on it, time and being able to process it. Most people, it is, between $300 and $450, roundabout, depending on the size of your home, for a home inspection. So most people would much rather spend $300 to $400 for the peace of mind that they can sell their house without someone backing out and losing all that time, and in the long run spending more money because you have to hold on to the house longer. So it gives you that peace of mind as much as you get to control the situation. You get to hire your own contractor. If you're handy or your dad's handy, they can come in and help you fix those repairs. And it's always, always cheaper to do it before you get to the home inspection period of a transaction.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things, as well as the availability of contractors. Once we're in an inspection period, like you said, it's typically 10 to 14 days is average. If we don't do the home inspection till day 7 or 8 or even 10, then we have a very short window to negotiate that repair request, find a contractor to do the work. We're oftentimes halfway through a transaction once a contractor comes in, and that's even if we can get them scheduled that quickly.
Yeah, because you're talking about the work has to or supposed to be done prior to close. And if you have a 30-day close or a 45-day close, or even a 60-day close, before you even get to the work to be scheduled, you're halfway through that. You know, you're a good 2 to 3 weeks in at this point, since the house has been ratified. So getting them in and getting that completed, which then turns around, a lot of times we get that call like, hey, can you do a re-inspection today? What do you mean today? Well, we close at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
And the repairs are just finished. And now we're trying to figure out how we can get in there to inspect the repairs, which then we come in and say, hey, this just wasn't done right, you know, or wasn't done correctly, or, you know, wasn't done at all.
Or exactly, things that are missed oftentimes.
And now you have, you know, closings being held up because of all this, versus most of this stuff could have been addressed before the house was even put on the market.
Absolutely. And it's much easier, especially the small things. Get those punch list items out of the way so that, you know, your home inspection report goes from 100 pages down to 40, which is the average, 40, 50 pages. Or the big things that make buyers walk away: attics, roofs, crawl spaces, those types of things. Address those big issues. And most of the time buyers are willing to take on some of those smaller items, so it creates a more even-keeled negotiation. And a buyer's always willing to spend more money on a house if it's in better condition. That's the bottom line. So again, it saves you money in the long run to address those issues ahead of time.
And one of the things, the rebuttals for pre-listings that I hear from agents is that they don't want to know. Right, because once you know, now you have to disclose. And that was probably okay over the last 2 years when there was a lot of waiving of inspections. But as we get back into this, it's kind of, well, whether you know now, you know later, you're going to find out.
Right.
Unless you're just hoping for that inspector that doesn't go in the crawl space or that's not going to find that stuff. Which is really, you know, that's play roulette. You know, you might get it, you might not. I like to think that there's more good quality home inspectors in our area, so you're more likely to not than the other way around. But I think at least bringing it up to your clients and adding that as a tool in the proverbial toolkit is always a good idea to have that conversation. And sometimes you just gotta, you know, get a feel for a house yourself, right? I mean, you've been through houses where it's, we should probably do this, right? Because of the age, the condition, whatever. And then there's houses, you know, like in this, you know, maybe this subdivision that we're at, we're like, you know what, we probably don't need to do that, right?
Right.
So it's not a me saying do it so we can get more inspections, but that's nice. It's also, as an experienced agent or a knowledgeable agent, you should be able to figure out which ones are more beneficial for it.
Right, absolutely, and that's a great point. And you know, there are times where we will push a pre-listing inspection much harder than not. So a house that we can see at the listing appointment that potentially has more issues, it may be harder to sell. So that's a house that we will push for that pre-listing inspection. Again, it helps us sell the house quicker for the most amount of money, which in turn is what the seller wants, and it helps the seller. So it's definitely in their best interest to do that, as opposed to, you know, a ready-made home that even in new construction we have problems, but typically not as many. And those are much easier to negotiate in the middle of a transaction on a repair request. So it definitely does pay mind to know certain things at the appointment up front.
Yeah, certain neighborhoods, we know that there's foundation issues because of, just the way it is in those neighborhoods and whatnot. So it's better to get ahead of that and at least be honest. If you don't have any intentions of fixing it, like, hey, these are the issues. We're not going to fix these. This is the quotes we got. You the one or you don't. And you kind of save everybody some time and money in the process versus just, 3 weeks later, nobody comes to an agreement, everybody walks away angry, and now you got to start the process over again. So, do you have any other tips for sellers or people or agents preparing houses to list in this market? Because now I would imagine, not being an agent or an appraiser, that we're going into some very fun territory, especially with pulling comps and stuff when comps were just now starting to kind of catch up. And now we're, like I said, we're going to 20, 30, 40,000. Not all houses. There's still some that's going over asking, but there's quite a few that I'm seeing now just from the little snapshots that I get that's dropping. So what would be your advice when it comes to that?
So we speak into our partnerships all of the time, and it really truly starts with that. So when we talk about the importance of a pre-listing home inspection, you partner with the agent to provide that value for the seller, which in turn provides them the value of a good buyer. Same thing goes with a stager. One of the items that we touch on in our appointments is the importance of having a good stager. I could tell you how to get your house ready, paint this room, fix this, declutter that, but to have a separate set of eyes that is trained, that's their specialty. As well as, contractor for any repairs that may need done. So staging is also a huge piece of that partnership in getting the house picture perfect, that when buyers walk in, they want to buy the house. So I would encourage, if an agent is, referring an inspector or a stager, take that, because it is a value to you. And you do want your house to be in the best condition possible. Then that directly plays into the price. And to your point, we have started to see lots of price reductions. The past 2 years, when the market's been crazy, they had to waive appraisals and waive inspections to win a house and pay 50, 60, 70,000 over value or over list price to win the house. But because we're getting back into that neutral territory and things are leveling out, buyers are able to do those inspections and look more into the condition of the home. So they're paying attention and they're not going to pay as much as what they potentially would have 2 years ago. So when a listing agent is pricing a house, obviously we've always looked at comparables. But last year we could price the house at the very top of the comparables. Let's say it has comps for 400,000. We could price it at 400,000 and someone was coming in and paying 450 and waiving the appraisal and paying that difference in appraisal value, which was bringing all the comparables up surrounding that area. And we weren't seeing any price reductions. But now some agents are still in that mindset where they're pricing at the top of those comparables, and people just aren't necessarily willing in certain areas to pay that. So our strategy, what we teach and educate on, is you want to price accordingly with your comparables, but also to get the traffic in your house. So if you have comparables that are between 240,000 and 260, 270, well, we could justify pricing it at 260, 270, of course, but you're gonna limit your buying power and traffic because you have certain people that are limited. Their parameters are at 250,000, so they're not gonna come see the house. So if you price it on the lower end of the comparables, the key is to get people in the door. We all know we run on emotions. Get in the door, fall in love with the house. Yes, I know you said your budget was a hard 250, but now you suddenly love a house so much that you might be willing to pay 260 or 270. So in my experience, pricing it on the lower end of the comparables is a much better strategy, and we are getting back to that now.
Or just, a step further is you're getting more people you get in, the more offers you can get.
Yes.
So when someone says, hey, do you have any offers? Yes, we have 3, even though their budget's $250. And then that client may be able to come in higher. So you're still coming in at a higher price. May not be the 20 offers we've been used to seeing, but it's still more offers in hand. People getting ready to submit offers may be more inclined to go a little bit higher than before, right?
Because they're emotionally invested at that point.
So just because you're pricing at the high of those comps doesn't mean you're going to get that. You may see that price reduction. Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And how often do we, everyone looks at Zillow, and
That's
we
right.
always look at houses,
That's
even
right.
as real estate agents, that we could probably never afford, but we just like to see them and say, oh, well, I'm not even going to go see that house because I could never afford it.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to get into people's minds prior to them even coming to the home. And price has a big factor to do with that.
Awesome. So I think the takeaways from this is to when you talk to your sellers, be realistic, set realistic expectations.
Absolutely.
Let them know that the market has changed a little bit to where, yes, the house down the street might have sold for $40,000 more, right? Or whatever, but that's not today. That was last year, that was 6 months ago, that was 4 months ago, even 3 months ago. And so to set those realistic expectations, and now as agents to really walk through the house and start thinking about what needs to be done for better presentation. Consider a pre-listing inspection.
Yes.
Just, again, leaning on expertise, leaning on the neighborhood, things like that, to determine whether or not it's worth it.
Right.
And then leaning on your vendors, like you said, staging, contractors, things like that to help better prepare the house. Because I think we're coming out of the phase where we can have a garage fire and we don't need to fix it because it's still going to sell for $50,000 above asking. That we really need to start as sellers on the list side needs to start preparing the house a little bit better. And whether you call us, whether you call somebody else, most reputable home inspectors typically have a pre-inspection checklist. Just a list that we can send out to our agents, to your clients, and it kind of goes through everything to kind of go through, check the light bulbs, check all your door handles, check, make sure your windows open and close, all the stuff you can do prior to the actual home being inspected, even if you don't do a pre-listing inspection and whatnot. That way, as I often tell people, if all the little stuff is taken care of and we don't have to keep stopping, it goes a lot smoother, but the more stuff we start finding, the more stuff we want to start digging into. So always reach out to your agent or whoever, or your partner in the home inspection industry, and ask for a sheet that they have for prepare the house. Again, it's no different than preparing it for sale, preparing it for staging, preparing it for the home inspection.
Right.
And now we're just out all 3 facets of that now.
Yes, knowledge is power, so take advantage of it.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
See what happens.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching our video. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you can be notified of any new content that we put on the channel.